Let's start. Hello. Hello and welcome to our regular Fridays knowledge sharing session. My name is Sergen, and today we are going to talk about migration. Let me share my screen, by the way. Great. For one of our clients, we had to migrate content from old Drupal 7 system to the new system based on Drupal 8. And core Drupal Migrate module is the best solution for it. So today I'm going to explain how to work with Migrate module, how data can be migrated from old system to the new system with this Migrate module. Today I will I will show, it will be like more technical discussion. I will show you the structure of module. I will show you the code, the configuration files, all we need to migrate data. If there are no any questions, let's get started. Can you see my screen, by the way? Yeah, great. On this slide, you can see like the main principle how Migrate module works. We have it based on three types of plugins. First type of plugins is source, and this with this sort of plugins we can extract data. We can use different sources. For example, we can connect to database based on MySQL, for example, or we can grab data from files stored in JSON format and stored on your in your system files, in your file system, or even we can define some data in modules configuration files. So with source plugins, we can grab some data. Then with the process plugin, we can process this data, we can alter this data, we can add any additional data. So we can do everything to prepare this data to be inserted into a new system. And the next and last types of plugins is destination. So we grabbed data, we processed this data, and now with destination plugin, we can define where we are going to insert this data. With destination plugins, we can define, for example, we want this data to be inserted to like user entity or node entity or any like custom type entity. Now, let me show you how it works in code. I will show you the structure of my custom module. We call it CW Migrate. And all we need for migration, we can define in this module. You can see there is like info file. We have some basic information about module. We have a config folder. And in this config folder, we have some config file defined. And in these files, we explain what we need for migration, like mapping, defined destination, source, and process plugins. Also, we will get back to these files a little bit later. And there is also a migration group content. We can define a few groups. For example, we can add a few groups and we can assign some migration to these groups. And when we run migration, we can say like, we want to run migration only for this particular group. Okay. Also, if you install a few contrib modules, we can see our migration in just a second. We can also see our migration in user interface. It's currently read only, but you can easily review all migration. You can see total amount of processes and processes nodes. You can see warning messages. You can see like all configurations, but only in read mode. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about source plugin. And this is example of source plugin to migrate press releases content. We can see that this is quite like very this is plugin with minimum amount of code. It extends source plugin from Migrate for Drupal. It extends parent destination source plugin to migrate nodes from Drupal 7. And in this example, we extended this plugin and overrided query and prepare row functions. In query, additionally, we want to say, for example, that we need, so this plugin, again, in this plugin, we define what data we want to grab. As source, we use Drupal 7 database. And in this query, we want to say that we want to filter all data by status. So we want to grab only published content, and we only grab only data with Ireland language. Also, there is a prepare row function. In this function, we can alter any data that we grabbed from the database, for example, and we can change this data. Or in this particular example, we make additional requests to the database, and we can grab names of taxonomy additionally. So by default, this request returns only IDs of taxonomy terms, but additionally we can add names of these terms. Or for example, we can also add like requests to get redirects and attach these redirects to all source results. Let's talk about process plugins. I will show you an example of configuration to migrate publication notes. And let's review this file together. So in this file, this is configuration file where we can define all settings for our migration. Do you see my screen well, by the way?
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay, great. So let's start then. And first, it's ID of our migration. It can be any custom name, human readable label, migration group. And this is first part where we defined the source plugin. We say here that we use our custom CW publication notes plugin. This is the plugin I showed you a few minutes ago. We can also define that we want to get all nodes with type resource. And in addition, as I showed already, it will also filter by node status and node language. Also, we can define, we defined here key of migration. Key, in our particular case, we define what database connection should we use. We use a database from Drupal 7. I'll show you. So we defined database connection to our database that contains data from Drupal 7. And we can see the connection name is Migrate. So in key parameter, we define this migrate name, this name of connection to database. So every time when source will try to grab some data, it will use this connection to this particular database. Let's talk about process. Here in this section, we can define process plugins, and we can define files mapping. We can define, for example, that this field from old system should be migrated to this particular field in the new system. For example, and the simplest example is title field. Here we say that we want to migrate title field from Drupal 7 database to title field in Drupal 8. There are a lot of different types of plugins. I will show you a few. For example, yeah, you can see the structure of plugin. We can use like plain structure. You can say this field should be migrated to this field, or you can apply different plugins. For example, this default value. So we want to say that type of node that will be saved in Drupal 8 site will be publication. So we say that type field in Drupal 8 will be publication. Or we can say that UEID should always be this number. Also, yeah, Migrate module is really flexible. It supports a lot of different approaches. For example, if we need to store array, we know that we have an array with key password, with key pass, and this pass array contains two values, pass after and alias. We can do it this way. Next example with countries migration, it's migration of taxonomy. We can use plugin named entity lookup. We can also we should also define source. So we say that we use these countries from Drupal 7, values from countries field. Then we use plugin entity lookup, and we search for existing entities in Drupal 8 in already migrated, for example, or created countries. We say that we want to compare titles. We say that we want to compare node with type country, and if titles equal, then it will be assigned to this. It will be assigned to this ID from country, already created country in Drupal 8 system.
Sergey, quick question. So these like field topics, for example, is the field in the destination database, not the origin?
We defined here that this is destination, right? Drupal 8.
Right. Yeah, originally I said when it was matching titles,
right.
I said it the other way around.
Yeah, I was wrong. Right. Sorry. So this is, we defined here Drupal 8. Yeah, and sorry, in title case, we defined that Drupal 8 field, and this field should be migrated from Drupal 7. And yeah, in this list, we defined all fields from Drupal 8 entity. Another good example with entity generate, we say that we use as source, we use field topics from Drupal 7 node. In this case, we want to compare names, and if this plugin won't can't find a topic in Drupal 8 with such name, it will create a new tag automatically. And here we define some configuration. We say that we want to create entity type taxonomy with type, like vocabulary name, content categories. It's great point about plugins that you can apply many plugins, many different plugins. And you can plug in, or you can apply like list of plugins, and when this plugin process data, it will pass the result to next plugin. And very interesting example about person. So a source field, we can use resource after field from Drupal 7 system, and we say that we will skip processing of this module of this plugin if the value from this field is empty. If it's not empty, we explode. We try to explode, because this data can be stored in outer. Yeah, in this way, or it can be stored in like. So we want to split this data and store only first value. And we don't know exactly what can be used as separator, for example, or it can be just one name. And with Migrate plugin, you can define this migration right here. So we try to explode, then we grab first value, then we explode to by end, then we array shift get first value, and then we will create a new entity, new node with person type by this given data. Do you guys have any questions?
Entity generate, how does it know what data to use for generation? I mean, I understand that the piping of the data, so array shift will pass something to entity generate?
Yes. I will repeat again. So in first item from the list of plugins, you will grab data from the source, and then this plugin will process or do something and pass the result of this process to the next plugin.
Yeah.
So we explode data, then we array shift, we grab first item from the array, then we try to explode by end, then we again grab first item from the array, and then this result will be passed to entity generate plugin.
I mean, I understand, but and this data which was passed to entity generate, it will become a title of this entity because a specified value key title.
Yes.
Right.
If it find or if this node, for example, already was created, then it will assign already existing ID, or it will create a new entity otherwise.
Mm-hmm. So it will look up by the title.
Exactly.
Cool.
I will quickly show you a few more examples. This is static map. You can map IDs from old system to IDs for a new system. Media image. Also, you can look up for migration. For example, we run files migration before this migration, and we want to map. We want to assign to our media image a new file ID. So we can say that I want to search for this old ID from Drupal 7 system. I want to show in already migrated files, and I want to get a new ID of this migrated entity. Here we defined the migration name, where to look. What else? This is our custom paragraph generate plugin. You can like generate a new paragraph with these defined values. And you can see this is special char. It means that as a source, I want to use value from already from defined before field. Very interesting was migration. So we had a task to migrate HTML content from body field to and create paragraphs from this HTML. So we had to parse this HTML and create paragraphs, for example, for heading, for images, for just text, for video. And this is like a quick example of this. You can see we use HTML to paragraphs plugin here. It's process defined. And as process, we say that process text will be used and all parsed text will be saved to paragraph with bundle name text large and to field name field text. This is process for body field. We say to grab data from body and create paragraphs for it. There are two sections, parser and process. In parser, we parse all this data. For example, we parse with this HTML parser plugin, we parse all heading, block quote text. Also, we parse images, and then all parsed text will be processed by process plugins and saved into new paragraphs. In this example, we say that if we found tag H1, we will store it to paragraph with type heading and to field name field heading. This is an example from a migration of files. Also, we already migrated files in previous migration, and currently we want to look up for ID, for new ID in this files migration. Very interesting in this plugin system that you can use even custom function from PHP. For example, you can use callback plugin, and you can define a PHP function that should process this data. In this example, we use array filter to remove all null data. Then we can merge data from all these fields, and we will merge all results to one field and store these results to blocks field. Do you guys have any questions?
Not for me.
The only question I do have, how do you test this? I mean, these YAML files, they are inside of config install folder. So do you reinstall everything every time you change something?
Let me show you. There is one quick helpful command. You can run this command just to reinstall configs from particular folder.
Cool, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
What else? Let me show you. There are a lot of ready-to-use plugins, process plugins. It's a really big list, and they are really helpful and really flexible. And also, of course, you can always define your own plugin. Okay. There is a section with destination, and we say that we want to save all results to entity to node. Dependencies section, it will describe the module dependencies, and migration dependencies will describe other migrations. So our current migration, it depends on files migration, for example. For example, we can't migrate nodes before we migrate files for these nodes. And in this section, we defined this required these dependencies. Let me show you a few commands how to run migration. So this is the command I told you. You can re-import files from configuration from this folder. This is an example how to run migration. So we say that we want to run migration with name press release nodes, and we can use different additional options here. For example, we can limit for the back reasons we want to migrate only one item, or we can migrate only item with ID is this ID. Or we can say that when we run migration, we want to update all existing, already migrated nodes, for example, and yeah, it will update with all like new data. We can use force attribute. It means that we can run migration, and it will be run even if we have dependent migration. For example, we didn't migrate files, but we want to try to migrate nodes anyway, so we should use force attribute. Also, we can use a migrate rollback command. It will remove all migrated, in this case, nodes. Also, very interesting feature is migrate manifest. This is additional module, and in this module, I will show you an example in configuration. You can define the order of migration. In this example, we say that we want to run files first, then we want to run release nodes migration, and then we want to run redirects for these press releases. And then we run command migrate manifest and pass this file as parameter, and it will run all this migration in this particular order. Do you have any questions?
Makes sense.
Okay, it's almost the end.
Very good, Sergey.
This is list of useful modules. For example, Migrate Drupal. It provides some helpful functionality for migration from old Drupal system to new Drupal system. Migrate Plus module, it also provides many useful information. Migrate Tools, Migrate Files helps to migrate files, and Migrate HTML to paragraphs. It's great module. I created a few patches, so people can also use some helpful functions. HTML to paragraphs, it helps to migrate from HTML and parse this HTML and store every piece of this HTML to separate paragraphs. And the last section with useful links. In general, it has quite good documentation, and it's even enough to just read this documentation, view a few examples, and you will be like good in migration. You will be ready to create your migration.
Very useful. Thanks, Sergey.
You're welcome. Do you have any questions? I skipped the part with where I wrote custom plugin for HTML to paragraph, but it's really easy to write new plugins.
Cool. No, I don't have any questions.
Oh, very good. Okay, if we leave things there, we've got another call coming up, and yeah, very good indeed. We'll share the video, show it to Kate when she's back.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, Sergey.
See you
Okay,
soon.
see you on the next call.
Yep. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.